So today we're diving into a memoir that just flips the whole story of addiction right on its head. It's called The Weight of Air by David Poses, and it's not just about a struggle with heroin. It's really about the bigger lies we're all told, and the ones we tell ourselves, about what it actually means to recover.
And this one sentence, right here, it's pretty much the key to his entire story. So you could just throw out that whole idea of chasing a high for Poses. Using heroin for the first time wasn't about escaping reality at all. It was about finally finding a moment of normalcy, a feeling of just being even.
Okay, so to really get his journey, we have to start right where he did. And this wasn't some search for a party. No, this was a desperate search for a painkiller.
You know, David Poses' story just completely shatters the stereotype of what we think an addict looks like. I mean, this was not some burnout kid. On the outside, he was a success story, a top-ranked tennis player, getting good grades. But inside, he was fighting this intense battle he couldn't even put into words. Then, at 16, he gets a diagnosis, clinical depression. But a whole string of antidepressants, they did absolutely nothing to help. And that, right there, was his logic. It's simple, right? He didn't see heroin as some recreational party drug. To him, it was a medical solution. I mean, think about it. After years of suffering from a diagnosed illness that traditional medicine couldn't seem to fix, he finally found something that actually worked. In his mind, this was self-medication. It wasn't a moral failing. But, you know, this personal truth, well, it was on a collision course with the established recovery industry. And that's where the real conflict of his story really begins.
So after trying to quit cold turkey, which as you can imagine goes horribly wrong, Poses gets sent to Hazelden. This is one of the most famous rehab centers in the country, and it is built from the ground up on the 12-step philosophy. You know the one, the idea that you are powerless over your addiction and you have to surrender to a higher power to be saved.
And this is where you see the fundamental disconnect. In his reality, he was self-medicating for depression. The rehab doctrine, on the other hand, insisted that addiction itself was the primary disease. He saw heroin as a painkiller. They called it pure evil. He felt like he had made a conscious choice. They told him he was completely powerless. How could their solution possibly work for him? They weren't even trying to solve the same problem.
And this quote from a counselor, wow, it just perfectly captures the wall he was up against. You see, the system needed him to have hit rock bottom. It was like a mandatory plot point in their recovery story. But for Poses, the decision to quit wasn't some kind of divine intervention from above. It was a conscious, logical choice he made. His actual life experience directly contradicted the narrative they required him to have.
So, after leaving rehab, Poses starts this long, really difficult search for a different path, a recovery that actually made sense for him and his reality.
Leaving Hazelden wasn't the happy ending. It was just the start of another huge struggle. For years, he's basically living this double life, secretly using heroin while trying to build a career, have a relationship, and seem normal. And then, in 2005, his daughter, Ruby, is born. And that's a huge moment, right? It gives him this incredibly powerful reason to find a way out for good. After a few more years of struggling, he finally found it.
And that solution? It came in the form of a medication called buprenorphine. For him, this wasn't about substituting one drug for another. As he says himself, buprenorphine gave me my life. It finally treated the root cause of the problem, and that allowed him to shift his focus away from just surviving day to day and toward actually healing the depression that started this whole thing in the first place.
And what's so powerful about this story is how his personal secret ends up shining a light on a much, much bigger lie in our society.
Get this, for a full decade after finding something that worked, something that gave him his life back, he told almost nobody. Why? Simple. Stigma. He knew his recovery story didn't fit that accepted 12-step narrative, and he was absolutely terrified of being judged, of being told he wasn't truly sober. And the book makes this incredible argument that this personal shame he felt, it isn't an accident. It's rooted in a massive systemic lie. Just listen to this quote from Nixon's counsel, John Ehrlichman. It's shocking. He basically admits the war on drugs was never about public health. It was a political weapon built on a deliberate lie to criminalize and demonize certain groups of people. So that stigma Poses felt, it wasn't just some personal fear. It was the intended result of a political strategy from decades ago that was designed to create shame.
So in the end, David Poses' story really forces us to question everything we thought we knew. What if our entire approach to addiction, an approach built on shame and moral judgment, is the very thing that's keeping people from getting better? The book leaves us with this massive question.
What if the real weight of the air isn't the drug itself, but the suffocating stigma we've all created around it?